some other country doesn't like what you're doing with that, they can shut you off. So we see this quite often with these high security data sovereignty use cases. One of the key deployments that we did with the government of El Salvador, and we helped push some legislation where they wanted to be the Switzerland of AI, right? Where they couldn't, other countries couldn't summon their data.
Again, hello everyone, how are you feeling? Excellent. So, welcome to our panel about Europe's cloud gamble, can sovereignty scale? So here at Cloudfest, we discussed this important topic not only in front of an expert audience like you, so I see a lot of service providers, cloud builders, infrastructure providers, IT decision makers, DevOps, etc., etc. And I think all of you know, or we are all aware, that digital sovereignty is no longer a buzzword, but a business imperative. So, and right with me here on stage are, again, industry experts. And we will discuss over the next 40 minutes how we can address the daily challenges of Europe's cloud gamble while bridging the gap between high expectations and a complex reality. So, gentlemen, why don't you introduce yourselves? Because otherwise, I'm not misspelling your names.
Thanks, Patricia. Shall I go first? My name is Jelle Slenters. I work for Sims Lifecycle Services, and I represent here our brand RACKRENEW. And our purpose is to bring remanufactured hardware, cloud infrastructure, to a second use. When it comes to sovereign cloud, my intent is really around hardware. So it's not software, it's really around hardware and the reuse elements of it.
Yeah, but maybe we come to the point whether hardware can also be sovereign. But that's a different topic.
Totally different topic.
Yeah, my name is Holger Nicolay. I'm Business Development Director at firstcolo. We are a colocation and cloud service provider. And in Frankfurt.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is JP. That's short for Juha-Pekka, Järvenpää. I come from UpCloud, which is a top cloud provider here in Europe, but also globally. So we're based in Helsinki, Finland. I work as a lead product manager, and basically what that means is I build the world's best cloud out there, and I help customers succeed. So, I mean, to help customers have no more excuses to switching to a European cloud.
I'm Ryan. I'm the Vice President of Deployments at Hydra. We focus on deploying AI infrastructure globally in sovereign use cases and low latency for inference providers and foundational model companies.
Great. So thank you so much. And let's dive into the first question. So if we are all assuming that digital sovereignty is more just a fleeting trend, so let's kick off the discussion today by exploring what is actually frightening us. Is it about unauthorized data access or someone just pulling the switch? Ryan, why don't you start?
Yeah, we discussed this in our previous meetings, and I think that is kind of one of the key things in state governments, AI infrastructure is how do you control your own destiny when it comes to your AI and your data? Because, if some other country doesn't like what you're doing with that, they can shut you off. So we see this quite often with these, high security data sovereignty use cases. One of the key deployments that we did with the government of El Salvador, and we helped push some legislation where they wanted to be the Switzerland of AI, right? Where they couldn't, other countries couldn't, summon their data. They passed a law where we'll protect this secrecy for what's deployed in here. So kind of, in a similar way, I think a lot of countries are looking for, well, where can I go do this? How do I do the same thing? How can I bring this business internally and also protect people's rights to not turn things off?
So, but from my hair, so what you're alluding to is primarily the risk that someone pulls the switch.
Yes, and also keeping data within the walls of the country, right? Like the most sensitive data. I mean, we saw this initially with the EU, right? And that drove a lot of change around the world because everybody was like, well, if the EU is doing it, we might as well have to follow all those standards as well. And we see with AI, because it's so data intensive, that is also the gold of what everybody does, right? And then what you're asking the AI to do when you're inferencing, you're sending it data, and most people want that to happen in country. I've been told as well, you know, there's state use cases, right, where, you know, it could be border protection or, you know, just knowing, like, or I guess you could say like safety use cases, right, in a city, and you're tracking people around, but you can respond quickly to it, right?
So, JP, what do you think?
Yeah, so, yeah, of course, maybe sovereignty itself, yeah, of course, means like being able to control really your own destiny and control your digital destiny, so be in control of where you are hosted, where your data is. And there are like regulatory reasons, of course, nowadays, and there may be becoming more and more regulatory reasons, but ultimately, me as a product manager, I really see everything through customers. So if we skip kind of the sovereignty thing, it's like your customers are actually the ones that want it. So you got to actually listen to the customers. There's a big motion right now happening in the market. Everybody talks about it. Everybody expects it right away. So, I mean, listen to your customers. They will tell you.
That's always a good advice. Holger, do you agree?
Yes, indeed. So my perspective is that besides the fact that sovereignty is not well defined or has just been defined, but not in the perspective of our customers, that every customer or even every workload from each customer has a different demand on levels of sovereignty. So what I feel from market feedback is that jurisdiction is quite abstract. This is usually not what people think of, but what has been longer in the market is the fear of getting the intellectual property stolen. So this is much more an sovereignty driver in my perspective. But I think it's a complex topic. There are many elements, and customers define their priorities.
So, Jelle.
Well, if you look at risk, I think you look at likelihood, and we still consume a lot of, say, global cloud services. So, in my opinion, I don't think the biggest risk is the likelihood that somebody pulls the switch.
Really?
No.
Oh, interesting.
I think at this moment in time, I think the market sees unauthorized access to your data, which is in alignment with where you run your models. Does the data flow over the oceans or not? Is your other data going? I think that is considered in the market a much greater risk at the moment. Of course, I think geopolitical stories, etc. But I don't think at least what I see is that the industry here is more worried on the data at this stage than that somebody pulls the plug.
Yeah, so the interesting question then is just to think about, are we just turning the blind eye or do we do the right thing? But anyway, let's move on to the second questions. And that really is something where I would like to look behind the economics. So from my point of view, I see two big questions that are kind of describing the current friction. So number one is Europe realistically capable of building cloud and AI infrastructure that can compete with the big global hyperscalers and scale? And number two, do we risk fragmentation in Europe by pushing national or even regional cloud or data infrastructure initiatives? So in this context, based on those two statements or big questions, my question to you guys, and random order please. So in this context, what is the one uncomfortable truth about Europe's cloud gamble that we are not talking about enough?
I can take the first one. I think if you look around here, I think Cloudfest is a good example that there's plenty of opportunity to choose European cloud providers. Maybe not with the entire suites of applications that you see, but I think we can get an awful long way. So you see a lot of innovation, you see a lot of supply of this industry. What I also like is that we see European cloud players are not European cloud players. I think, well, UpCloud is a good example. You run in Australia, you run others. So I think on that end, we see maturity arriving in our industry. When it comes to national, regional, all that kind of stuff, so can we really scale in Europe? I think the reality that the US is in front, where you see these massive AI investments going on at the moment, I think a big driving force is tax deductions. So it's called the Big Beautiful Bill. You, on your investment, you get 100% depreciation on your tax bill. So what I see, the fear in Europe on national is that, and that's what you slowly see happening. You see France giving tax benefits. We see the Dutch, right? We like our wallets, so we're not doing anything. So I think what we should really do in Europe is align on that European standard with a bit of an ambition, maybe a vision document. Not saying that we do everything on our own. I think the world is intertwined because then you hit into sovereign, hardware, software. I think the stack, supply chain, technologies. I think that's a much wider discussion. But my fear is that we don't do it united. And the last thing you asked was the number one thing we're not talking about.
Enough.
Well, I think that's energy.
Okay.
I think that we're maxed out. So unless you kick somebody out, then you can't kick more up. So I think energy is the biggest constraint on getting through sovereign.
Interesting. Additional thoughts, comments? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
Yeah. So I think from what is discussed publicly, it is, to me, from a German perspective, it's sometimes a bit black or white. We have a data center strategy now in Germany, and we want the AI gigafactory, or we ask for the one big European hyperscaler. I'm not sure whether this is really the answer, because workloads that are already with the, for example, US hyperscalers, they are there, and the one that follows it will hard for him to win that. But having a variety of providers that provide sovereignty for different workloads. So the audience here, we above, I think the sum of the offerings. This is what will help us in Europe to build something alike that can comprehensively compete with the hyperscaler. Yeah.
So is there anything we're not talking about enough?
I think we are not acting enough, but
good point.
I think there's a lot of talk. In the data center industry, there is even a lot of talk about energy. So, but this, I think we don't move fast enough, we don't act enough. But there is not that single topic I would say, we need to bring that up. No.
Yes, so in my view, I would say the level of engineering is there. There is nothing really impeding us of building, world-class services. We're already doing it. Now, maybe the question has been lately that, people haven't been aware of European, let's say, cloud providers, and now they are becoming aware. I mean, it's a big thing here now. So maybe that's the big thing.
So awareness.
Sorry?
Did I get that right? Awareness.
Yes, awareness overall. I mean, it's been a long classic saying, nobody gets fired from buying IBM now. It's nobody gets fired for buying AWS or Azure. But there are options. I mean, I do represent one cloud provider here in Europe. I mean, there are multiple very, very good ones. The engineering ship is there. The scale maybe isn't yet, but there's nothing really impeding us from doing this. It's just about scale and maybe capital. Now, what comes maybe to legislation, what we maybe in Europe, we're really good at legislating things. Maybe we need to add a little bit of legislation so that the public tenders and whatnot, we maybe prefer European options on that side. But maybe at the same time also reduce legislation so we can get the free market going here and let the companies succeed and flourish.
Anything to add from the other side of the Atlantic?
Yeah, I think We have a unique approach to how we want to solve the sovereignty infrastructure problem. Obviously, particularly relating to AI infrastructure and the GPU hardware that is needed to run it. I think the cracks in the facade of the bigger hyperscalers were, I mean, I guess you could say NVIDIA sort of did that because it kind of made bare metal sexy again, you could say. They kind of own the software stack, which you could say is its own sort of sovereign issue, but at least decoupling it from a few central providers and allowing multiple smaller providers, I mean, obviously you can see the burst of different neoclouds to the market, are all able to deliver on the execution of in the data center, in the regions they want to serve, right? And I mean, NVIDIA's alignment with us is that, yeah, we want to see cloud providers in every single country. So what we're trying to solve is, well, how do you standardize that infrastructure to make it quickly accessible in all those countries without having to move a lot of stuff around, right? So we think, you know, building a really solid foundation at the bare metal automation layer, right? And then we're going to open source that, right? To make it easier for other providers in other countries to stand up that stuff and then bring other people in to use it. So now you've fractured all of this central power and where anybody can do it, so that when we can solve the energy crisis, because if one country is energy abundant and others aren't, at least they can provide infrastructure maybe, and you know, through new technologies like confidential computing, which you know, NVIDIA pioneers, you might feel safe moving data on that infrastructure, or you create alliances with other countries, just like, you know, we have military alliances, maybe there are AI alliances as well.
Yeah, so Bill, you built a nice bridge already.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, sorry.
Because my next question is really about open standards, open source platforms. How important will they be, or are they maybe already for Europe's digital sovereignty? And how can, especially service providers, as the local heroes, help to reduce the dependencies on the large hyperscalers, monopolists, and of course also mitigate or reduce vendor lock-ins?
Yeah, open source. I mean, we're a big proponent of that. I think most companies are. You're seeing a lot of reshoring of on-prem, right? It was kind of go to the cloud, but we're seeing a lot of people reshore that. I think that's due to the vast community that funds open source and supplies a lot of intellectual property back into the communities as well. And the more that we use it, the more, you know, portable it is.
Do we have enough open source options, or is it just too hard to convince the customers?
Maybe like we see it at UpCloud, maybe the open source side is the tooling that's related to managing your cloud, really, and that has become like very standard already across providers. Let's say you're managing your infrastructure through Kubernetes or Terraform or OpenTofu if you're into the open source world a little bit more. So that's already available. Every respectable provider supports all of those. So it's super easy nowadays to, you know, pick up a new provider, try them out. You will find support on all of those technologies. So everybody does the same thing. Same goes for technologies such as, you know, object storage S3 is the world standard. There's pretty much no other option on that. So, I mean, everything is pretty much portable already between providers.
Yeah, I think portability and trust is key. So there has been a time where we talked about a lot about vendor lock-ins, and I think portability and trust are the key elements. And the first comes from standards, and the second from OpenStacks. Yeah, so I think those two are key.
Yeah, on the software side, of course, I'm more on the hardware side of the fence. So on the software side, I follow UpCloud's analysis. There was a panelist yesterday who said something interesting on the open source software development. There's one little risk we need to look at, and that's the funding of that community. It is so that's generally speaking, I think that's maybe where Europe could play a role in, where we could really guarantee some funding on that open source community, without having proprietary rights to it. I think from the hardware side, we see is that the Open Compute project really pushed open standards in hardware development. It's not as big yet in Europe because it's primarily driven by the American hyperscalers, but not through an American initiative, but it's really a global initiative.
Yep.
Because we see more and more partners. If you walk on Cloudfest, you see more and more OCP OEMs that become a member of OEM. I think NVIDIA is a good example. They use a lot of the open compute standards. So you see is that cooling, you see that power supplies, all that is going towards open standards. So I think that's a major gain. And good to see. And yeah, you need one big one and the rest will follow. I think that's, we can benefit from it. Yeah. But it's essential.
Right. So, and customers, so very often at least when I'm talking to my partners or customers, they go, number one, A brands, only A brand vendors are listed in the procurement departments, and others say, yeah, but trying something that open source or that has the label open source is not really trusted.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reluctance from humans. I mean, we don't like change. Huh? So
change is good.
yeah, but generally speaking, people don't like change. I think that's academically with evidence underpinned. But so I think it's an encouragement to your IT departments and people that are in the technology space is that be less narrow-minded, be open for new standards and trial it. I think that's an important key because yeah, now you have resources connected to say one strategy, but if you go to open, eventually you build more resilience to your supply chain because there's more availability of knowledge, there's more availability of alternatives. Yeah. So on paper it sounds nice that you stick to one brand, but in reality resilience or sovereign is that you have some alternatives.
Correct. So I think now it's almost half time, and I think rather than going on a break, let's go for a quick, short, crisp kind of speed dating round. So we've got 30 seconds. There are two things I would like to know, and in your own words, but please keep it short and crisp. So tell me one thing Europe must stop doing, and another thing it must start doing right away to achieve not only sovereignty, but also kind of create or get to its own credible cloud and AI infrastructure.
Maybe I can start. So, yes, two things. So, it's super simple. We're going to stop regulating, and we're going to start innovating. So, everything starts from there. Everything starts from the customers. If we just say that we are sovereign here, nobody will buy anything. We need the solutions that the customer will want to buy. So that needs a lot of innovation. So stop regulating, start innovating.
Nice statement.
I think there's a second element. So I hear a lot of politicians talk about EU initiatives, sovereignty, but that will not work if their own administrations go on buying from the hyperscalers because they haven't changed their mind so far. So the one thing we really need to do is from the customer side walk the talk.
I kind of agree with UpCloud. I think, but to say something else, that what we should start doing is incentivizing the acceleration. So
good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like, see more, start doing incentives. And yeah, stop regulating, I think, at least on my side of the pond. I don't want to speak for Europe, but I think we see Europe as like an over-regulated place. So I think that I would highly agree with that.
I was on the panel once. They say in the US they innovate, in China they scale, and in Europe they regulate. Yeah. So,
yeah, unfortunately that sounds like the reality. I don't like it, but I tend to agree.
Yeah.
So I've got maybe a little bit of a nasty question for you, and feel free to discuss it among the four of you. So let's say Europe fails to achieve a meaningful cloud, AI, and infrastructure sovereignty in the next 5 years. So what are the real consequences of that failure?
Huge.
Why?
In my humble opinion, and that's why I'm so focused on energy, because I think digital infrastructure is integrating into our grid. Whether you get small edge sites and all the inference close by, etc. So these two worlds really come together, where the digital infrastructure runs on a, I don't know, NVIDIA on a 12 months, 18 months refresh cycle. The energy industry runs on, I don't know, a 20 years horizon, and it runs at a much lower pace. So we could argue in Europe, besides we had some deindustrialization, but we only added capacity when there was a business case need for it, and not a future demand for it. And I think that's what we really need to do, in my opinion, is okay, we have the market, we have the population, we have the use cases. Now you have to make sure it's available. And those two are alignment. And if you look at Germany, I mean, you can't run an energy line between one state and the other. It takes 4 years, 5 years. So I think the impact is huge if we keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, totally. Now is the time. They say that Europe is become an open-air museum, but there's a risk that we could become a digital open-air museum as well, a digital ghost town, little by little. It won't happen overnight, of course. So yeah, I mean, the only way we can prevent that really is that we got to start using the local alternatives out there. There are really good, really local, hyper-local ones, and then there are really good European alternatives out there. So it's totally something we can change at this point, but in 5 years, let's not have the same discussion, right?
So what you're saying is there is still a chance, but we have to act now,
yeah,
or
totally.
start acting now.
Yes, exactly.
But we're not too late yet.
Yeah. Now there's a good motion, I think, in the market. Let's keep it going.
But do you think it's really about the sovereignty, or is it just because we have customers in Europe, we will consume cloud, we will consume inference and all that kind of other stuff. So do you think that moving to an open-air museum, however the synonym is it related to the fact that we will lose economic growth, or will it occur because we rely on a technology that comes overseas? Because that's...
Yeah, I think there's a chance that we will lose momentum, but it's also like, think about your own business. You run on probably on some hoster out there. It might be AWS, it might be a European alternative, it might be even us UpCloud. But like, think about it, if you are unable to switch providers for any reason, whether it's sovereignty now, which is the buzzword, of course, we're all here because of that. But if you're unable to switch providers for other reasons, I mean, the provider might have downtime, they might have other problems, they might, you know, next year we might be talking about something completely else. But gain the kind of digital freedom to move around, switch providers, take the best of, you know, where do you want to basically do your business. So you have much more freedom and independence that way, and you can also pick the best pricing as well.
I'm not that much afraid that there might not be that one meaningful cloud. I think that there is enough innovation in the European markets, in the room here, that we will have meaningful cloud providers that will be able to cope with the demands of their customers. So, but still, yeah, there is coming equipment, software from overseas, and that's why we really need to think about where does that come from, how does that look like when there's another pandemic, when there's another war. So I think this is the context we need to think of, and sovereignty, I think, is part of this of the solution, of the answer. So I don't think it is buzzword. It is much in focus right now, but I think it is a part of a context that will not disappear anymore.
And Holger, as a firstcolo, do you see a trend that, because we always talk cloud, but there are multiple clouds, hybrid, public, private. So it's dangerous to summarize everything under one word of cloud. Do you see a shift or in the German economy that enterprises move back to on-prem and then maybe use your co-location, or do you still see that massive flow to public cloud?
I think overall there is still a massive flow to public clouds, but in the past the wrong workloads have been migrated into the cloud. So I see as well a trend of cloud repatriation. But this is not an statistically this seems to be a contradiction, but I do not think it is. So repatriation may have been cost-driven in the last years because the wrong workloads have been migrated into the public clouds, which were not made for that. Yeah, you wouldn't you wouldn't pay a taxi when you get out. Yeah, you would ask him stop billing. So so this is the commercial thing, and I'm pretty sure that there will be some elements of repatriation for sovereignty, for intellectual property reasons as well. But still, I think workloads will go into the public cloud as well.
Yeah, I would say Holger is right here. I mean, what we've seen is that many customers who have maybe adopted a lot of the higher level functionalities on, let's say, hyperscale such as serverless, they have maybe then encountered a heavy bill from that, so they are maybe looking for something a little bit simpler, maybe self-hosting something on VMs, but maybe not going right off the cloud. I mean, there is a little bit of that as well, but you need to be quite big to be successful in that and have a lot of expertise. But self-hosting on simple cloud servers, that's totally what we see in the market right now. So there is definitely that kind of movement.
So as a closing question, because we are coming to the end, unfortunately, I could carry on for hours.
With a beer, yeah?
Absolutely, of course. But before all the booth parties start, so we also want to release.
You can smell it, right?
Yeah. But there's also, you know, my favorite closing question. So, what to do on Monday? So, do you have some actionable takeaways for our audience here?
I would start Monday morning. Look at your landscape, see how you currently do it. Start some proof of concepts. Do some analysis. I think, although we want to regulate less, but Europe came with a new framework called SEAL. Not to go into the details, but it gives you a nice framework just to look at your landscape, go through, you know, the resilience, and ask yourself, what do you think is vital to get? You can't do everything at once. I don't also think that we have to do it. All the workloads have to do. I think we will still consume Asian tech. We will consume American tech. Maybe there's a bit more European tech coming up, but I think that will always happen. But I would start do a bit of an analysis, a bit of ambition, and say let's start.
So that's what we would do on Monday, and this is then like the question: how do you eat an elephant, bit by bit, piece by piece, and then you would start doing that from Tuesday onwards.
Well, but you have to start, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
If you keep staring at it.
So, Holger, same question: what to do on Monday?
Yeah,
What's your
I think
advice for the audience?
from a customer perspective, I think it is important to analyze or to revisit whether the workloads organizations are in the right infrastructure. So I think it starts with awareness, and yeah, my next steps is keep on promoting sovereignty and keep on promoting that awareness rises, and of course posting from Cloudfest.
And consider at least a European alternative.
Of course.
To the well-known hyperscalers.
Yeah, so Monday morning when you maybe on your way to your office, you might drop by the local bakery and maybe pick up a croissant. Think about it for a while. Why do you pick it up from the corner bakery? Why don't you go to the big supermarket, the multinational supermarket, and buy it from there? They have croissants as well. Well, they're not maybe as good. They might be more expensive, and they might not test as well. Okay. So think of the same analogy with cloud services or any other service you might use. Try your European alternatives, make a list, you know, what you're using, check where they're hosted, where they are, which company it is, where it's come from, and go and try stuff and drop out our booth to discuss about cloud.
Yeah, I think for Hydra, after coming here, this is our first kind of major conference in Europe. It's going to be, you know, start by gathering a power map of all the new innovative colo providers, firstcolo being one, and others in each different country, and creating a map of even who has what, even down to 500 kilowatts, and coming up with a plan to help those colos monetize that power and create a more wide network of AI infrastructure that can be consumed, and give all of the different Europeans way more choices around that. And because colo's hard, deploying AI infrastructure can be hard and challenging, and lead times and the crazy DRAM crisis we're dealing with. So definitely leveraging the new relationships we have here to try and really expand that market.
Yeah, but that also sounds a little bit like, especially a call to action for the Europeans, because guaranteed, let's say, a customer in Florida wouldn't even think about whether it's a good idea to buy from a vendor in Washington or Minnesota or whatever you name it. So here in Europe, we've got the tendency saying, well, I'm in country A. Is it really a good idea to buy from a guy or a company based in the Benelux or in Finland or whatever? So maybe that is also something.
Yeah, but I mean, the UpCloud is also in many countries. So probably it's driven by your domestic clients that spread across the world. But we should also be a little bit reluctant. So what you also hope is that, say, Americans start to use European cloud providers in the Americas.
Absolutely.
So it's not against everything. I think there's still an opportunity to also for Europeans to explore the American markets and sell our product.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So we are almost at the end. So before the timekeeper tells me off, I can only say that my key learning from today is, and it has been a short, but thank you, great conversation. I think the real question isn't whether Europe can scale sovereignty. So, and that's why I do really wonder now, after these 40 minutes, what the headline in 2030 will read when we all come back here for the next Cloudfest gathering. Can we sit here and say, yeah, we made it, Europe has built its own digital infrastructure, or we just rented one? Anyway, please join me in thanking our panelists, and let's continue the discussion at our booths with booze, or later today. So either way, with a cool drink in our hands. And thank you very much for being here, listening to us, and your interest in our panel discussion. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Come back for Cloudfest or even MSP Global later in this year, and hope to see you later. Thank you.